All right, everyone. Got an awesome guest here for you guys. You might recognize Jermaine. He is a champion elk caller. He's had quite a bit of success just this season alone. And he works with Phelps and his son too. I've offered to pay for his son to hop in my backpack. I'm sure I'm not the only person, but he's training his son up right. So, but Jermaine, let people know who you are, kind of you in a nutshell. Introduce yourself. Who are you?
So yeah, thanks for having me on. So as you said already, my name is Jermaine Hodge, and I'm originally from North Carolina, and then I joined the military right after school, not high school, after college, and then I was chasing the dream of trying to win Olympic medals and world medals. So I got the chance to come out to Fort Carson and try out for the world class athlete team. I ended up making it in 2004, joined in 2005, and I've been out here in Colorado since. But my love for hunting has always been in my heart. And lo and behold, I moved to a state that has a lot of elk here. And I've been chasing elk since 2006, and I've been successful year in and year out.
That's amazing. Yeah, and it's awesome. I just before hopping on here, guys, I figured out he's an athlete. You look in shape, right? Meeting you in person, you can tell you've got that strong just handshake and everything about you, man. But I didn't realize you were an athlete still. And so that's amazing. Other than, of course, mountain athlete, right? You're getting out there chasing elk.
Right,
That's hard enough.
right.
But that's amazing, man. So you're juggling a lot of stuff, right? You've got your career, you've got the passion for elk hunting, which that in and of itself can take over your life. And you've got kids.
I got two kids, a boy and a girl. I hit a home run. I'm done.
There you go. You got one of each.
Yep,
That's
yep.
awesome. Yeah, I didn't stop till we had five. So
Woo,
I'm
too
building my
much
own
for me.
baseball team over here. That's what I'm trying. That's what I'm
There
trying
you,
to do.
there you go.
That's awesome.
That's
So yeah, so
funny.
you ended up out in Fort Carson. Well, let's just talk a little bit about, first of all, just from where you've come from. We're both from North Carolina. Were you born and raised in North Carolina?
No, I was an army brat. So my I was born in Texas, Killeen, Texas, Fort Hood, and then we my parents moved immediately to I think they got stationed up in New York somewhere, and that's where my brother was born. And then they moved from there to North Carolina. So I could I could say born and raised. I probably should have been born and raised because I've been in North Carolina ever since I could remember.
Yeah, I can hear it. I honestly, man, I don't know if you're the same way, but I miss that accent sometimes when I go back home and I get to hear it. It's
Yep.
amazing that you haven't lost it because I went down to Mexico for 2 years, served a mission, came back, and I've basically lost my North Carolina accent, except for when I say North Carolina and
Hmm.
when I get frustrated. My wife's like, I can tell you're frustrated, even though you're saying you're not, because your accent's coming out. So
Exactly. Exactly.
yeah. Well,
No,
that that
I actually thought I lost it, and then everybody's like, "You're not from here, so where are you from?" And then they say, "Oh, I can hear it." I'm like, "Well, my wife listens to it every day, so she can't tell, and I can never tell." And then you hear it from other people. Yeah, you definitely ain't from Colorado.
I'm gonna have to listen to see if that affects your elk calling at all. If you got that southern twang in there, yeah.
Maybe just a little bit.
Maybe that's what they like so much. That's why they come into you. They're like, wow, what's this? What's this little twang he's got there at the end? Let's check out this guy. Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
That's awesome, man. So, okay, raised army brat, ended up going. Let's talk a little bit about this. The sports side of things, because I'm genuinely interested. I talk a lot about faith, family, fitness, and the outdoors. Right. That's basically those four pillars. I've noticed that people who are successful in their lives consistently, not just blowing up, going viral, whatever, but consistent success and improving their lives, they incorporate those four things into their lives. And so and I never wrestled. I've gotten into jujitsu lately. I love it. I love martial arts. I played sports growing up, and I always had a big respect for the wrestlers because at that age, learning, through high school and junior high, learning how to cut weight may not necessarily be the healthiest thing, but the discipline behind it
Right.
is a big deal, you know, and that's something that, you know, yes, there's discipline in all sports, but with wrestling, I'm trying to push my son that direction, you know, because there's less head
Right.
injuries compared to football, et cetera. But let's talk a little bit about that. Let's talk about maybe your wrestling journey or your sports journey a little bit here.
Okay. Yeah. So I started wrestling at the age of 12, and then it became something that I absolutely love to do. My brother, was right behind me in those footsteps, and you know, we went on through high school and wrestled. I was a couple time state champ, an All American, and then we went to college, two separate colleges. Me and my brother went. I went across, the U.S. to Lassen College, and then he went up to Lock Haven University, and then we kind of met in the middle on our junior years of college, and then went to UNC Pembroke for a little while. And I was juggling so many different things that um, I needed to, I just really needed to focus on one thing, and that was wrestling to me. So, but at the same time, you got to make money, you got to be able to do this. So I knew the Army had a wrestling team. I just didn't know how to get there. And once I joined the Army, I got stationed at in Korea. And when I did, um, the first sergeant came out with a laundry list of things that you can do, and they had a wrestling tournament at Casey, a couple hours from where I was, and I went up there, wrestled in that tournament, won that tournament, and then the athletic director asked me if I wanted to wrestle in this next tournament the following weekend, and I did that. And then he kind of said, "Who are you, man?" And I gave him a little bio of myself, and then he said, "Well, that was back in the day when you had to paper jam everything, fax it up. Well, nowadays it's all on computers and digital stuff." So he got me signed up for All Army, which is a sister program for the World Class Athlete program. So basically, they bring in soldiers from different stations, and they see if they can make the World Class Athlete program. So back then, it was about 3 months of training, and then they feed you to the wolves, basically. So within 3 weeks of being here in Fort Carson, Colorado, I had the head coach asking me if I wanted to be a part of the World Class Athlete program. Of course, it was just grinding it out, discipline, stay on it, work hard, and good things have happened. So, um, lo and behold, I go to nationals, and I meet this standard to make the program. There's a standard that you have to meet to be able to come into the program. Then 2005, I got orders to Fort Carson to be a part of the World Class Athlete program. And from that point on, it was the journey of trying to make a world team, trying to make a, well, I mean, first of all, the first steps was, hey, I need to win a national title. And then when that happened, then it was, hey, I need to make a world team and then make this Olympic team. So I was blessed to be a part of a lot of great athletes and be a part of their journey, and also them pushing me to be who I am. So, um, throughout my journey, I wrestled all the way up until 2016 before I laid my shoes down. And now I'm one of the coaches for the female wrestlers that wrestle freestyle. So, um, I'm doing both sides of it now. I competed for years, and now I'm one of the coaches and watching my athletes live their dreams and help them achieve their goals. So yeah, I was fortunate enough to be a part of, like, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 national teams, and then be a couple time alternate for world teams and stuff. So it was a fun journey, but now it's all about watching them.
That's amazing, man. That's truly a good story there. That's you know, again, a lot of people think college or then professional sports right after that, but making a national team, like representing the US in that way, and then being able to make a world team, even whether it be as an alternate or first string, or, man, I'm probably butchering the terminology there, but either way, that takes a lot of skill, a lot of effort. Were did your family wrestle growing up, or was that something you just picked up as you went through school?
Yeah, no, me and my brother were the first ones to wrestle for the family. So uh, you look back throughout the journey of the Hodge family, no one wrestled. It was just me and him. So I think it was just that fight mentality that we had,
Hmm.
and that grit and grime, and it kind of just translated for wrestling. Because I mean, let's be real, all wrestling is a fight with rules.
Yep.
So You just put some rules in there that you can't hit and stuff. So, but basically, it's grappling and trying to throw this guy on his head.
Yep. There you go. No, that's amazing, man. And what weight class did you wrestle at?
Well, in high school, of course, they have a whole bunch of different weight classes. In high school, I went from like 112, 119, 125 as you hitting those growth spurts.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Here on the open level, um, senior open level, I wrestled 121, which is 55 kilos.
Mm-hmm. Okay. See, that's a fast weight class. So I've got a buddy that he coaches over at NC State now. He
Hmm.
was either 2 or 3 times state champ in high school. He wrestled at 189. Those dudes are big. Like he walks around at probably 215.
Yep.
He's a stout guy. And anyway, he's done awesome for himself, and seeing him and going through what he's gone through and what he's doing now is amazing. And then but watching the 125 guys, man, whenever I'd go to those meets and I'd see the 125 guys, I'm like, and I don't remember much weight classes under that, but those 125 guys were fast. Like you blink and they've got them flipped. Like it's ridiculous how fast and powerful that weight class is. So that's awesome, man. That's kudos to you.
Thank
Um,
you. Thank you.
yeah, and there's definitely, when you take things outside the US too, there's probably even more because most people aren't, as stout as guys in the US, right? So I imagine there's probably even more competition taking it outside of the US with just kind of smaller built individuals anyway. That seem
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Yes, it's tougher because I wrestled Greco-Roman wrestling, which is all
Mm.
upper body attacks. So you can't attack the legs at all. I know
Oh.
most of everybody's familiar with folk style during high school or middle school where you have a different position. Where we talking about Greco-Roman and freestyle, those positions are totally different because you have parterre rules, which is one guy's down on the mat, flat on the mat, and one guy's on top, and we're trying to expose their back for additional points. So instead of holding them down and riding them for time like you would see in college, we don't do that. We try to expose their back because if we can expose their back, we gain in more points. So
Hmm.
it's very different and it's very difficult, especially Greco-Roman because everybody in the world is good at Greco-Roman. So
Mm-hmm.
when you go overseas, it's tough.
Yeah. No, I imagine that's crazy. I'd have to look up those rules because that's, I guess, what I'm used to watching is, the using the legs for takedowns and
Yep,
I guess you were saying that's more folk style.
folk style. Yep.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
That's
more of
cool.
your high school and your college wrestling. And then you have freestyle, which you still can attack the legs, but you have the parterre rules inside of that. So the rules are totally different than your college wrestling, your high school wrestling. This is more of your senior open, trying to make an Olympic team. This is Olympic style wrestling.
Mm, okay, man, that's that's a lot more complicated than I realized. I
Yes,
thought
it
you just
is.
try and get someone on their back and hold them there. So that's cool. So it's a lot more like playing chess.
There it
There's
is. Yep.
a lot more things to it, and learning how to score points. That's awesome. Um, Well, cool, man. So just kind of walk us through. So that's kind of your fitness journey. Obviously, wrestling is a year-round thing that you're always prepping for, you're always training, especially when you get to national and world level. I know some Olympic athletes that they trained at the headquarters over there in Colorado. And they lived there at the facility. And just like it was year-round weightlifting for them because they were in the weightlifting. I'm going to butcher that, but whatever that is. So I can only imagine, your lifestyle basically revolves around making sure you're in shape, and that your mindset's in the right spot so that you can, go to that match and whatever you're doing. Now, being as a coach, you kind of swapped roles there, but you're still a fit guy. So talk to us a little bit about that too. How does fitness play a role into your life, whether it be just you personally, also with your job, but also your family? Kind of dip into those different categories there.
Yeah. So the, it's changed since I was an athlete, but it hasn't as much. I'm always still on the mat wrestling with these guys, just not as much as I would as if I was competing. So I get to stay in shape through that, um, and I use that as a tool for me to be ready for the Elkwoods. So if I can get out here and wrestle with them we don't have to go 6 minutes, which is a match. If I can go with them for 3 to 4 minutes, then I'm just as good as in shape as if I was going 6 minutes on a match
Mm,
in a match with them. So your in shape level might not be exactly the same as if I was competing, but I'm
mhm.
still doing the same things. And the only thing that changes for me is I get to eat what I want to eat now versus when I was competing. So when I was competing, I had to really hone in on watching what I ate. So I would say if you're a bigger fella or a bigger individual and you want to
Yeah.
watch that aspect of it, that should be a year-round thing that you should always watch too as well. Um, but as a former athlete, I live in a gym still. I live in a gym still, so the tools are available for me. So someone that doesn't have the opportunities like this, you got to make time to get out there and do something extra every day to better yourself, so that these mountains don't eat you alive when you get out here. Because I promise you, I'm in shape, and they still eat me up sometimes.
Hmm. No, for sure. Deadfall, right? Don't you love it?
Oh my goodness, every day is a leg day. Every
All I
day,
think is just lunges, lunges. Every time I get into some
every
deadfall, I'm
day.
just like, here we go. Step ups, lunges.
I had a buddy come from North Carolina, and we were laughing. He was in really good shape, and he was like, "Man, every day's a leg day." I said, "You
Hmm.
ain't lying.
Yep,
You ain't lying."
exactly. It's so true, man. It's so true. And was he so I do want to ask just real quick. This is kind of off the subject here. It's definitely not healthy at all, but something I really miss is North Carolina barbecue.
Man, I still eat it.
Like there's just nothing like it. Like I came out here, and barbecue, there's a bunch of good barbecue sauces and everything, but man, that Smithfield's barbecue,
Yep,
like there's just, you know what I'm talking about, the cornbread or the hush
yep,
puppies and the
that's right.
coleslaw and the Brunswick stew. Oh my goodness, man. People
It's
don't
nothing like it.
understand. Yeah.
It's
When you
nothing
go,
like it.
when anyone listening, you go out to North Carolina, you have to have some North Carolina barbecue. People
Yeah,
trying to imitate it out here, and it's not the same.
yep,
Um, but
I
anyway,
agree.
sorry. Back on healthy stuff. Not I'm over here hungry. So with fitness now, we've talked about your journey, but how do you incorporate that? Because I've met your son. I don't believe I've met your daughter. But how he seems like he's not a chubby kid by any means. He seems like he's got endless energy from what I was seeing. And how do you incorporate fitness at some form for your kids as well? In your family. Obviously, they've seen what you've been doing. They see your example, but is there anything that you guys do in your family that maybe someone who's not, a world-class wrestler can incorporate with their kids?
Right. I just make it fun, right? At this age that he's 12 years old, this is his first elk tag. You can't hunt out here in Colorado big game until you're 12. I just make it fun. Like we might do a pull-up challenge, or we might do a sit-up challenge, or we might do something basic, or but more so of just involving them into the outdoors. So if we go shed hunting, that means we got to walk. So it ain't no complaining when we hit 10 miles and we haven't found a shed, right? So we're doing those things, and little does he know, or does my daughter know, that they're getting exercise too. But also them being, pretty small and lean, that has a lot to do with genetics, because me and my wife are small individuals and pretty skinny and fit, and they just we pass down the genetics to them. So I wouldn't imagine in any of their lifetime that they're going to be big, but who knows? But I'm always involved in little things that they don't even notice that they're working out, and then they do it. And we just do the challenge, the push-up challenge. And they know we're doing push-ups, but they don't know that they're actually getting a good workout in. Or if we go shed hunting and we're walking, X amount of miles, they don't even know that we're getting exercise, but at the same time we're looking for sheds, something they like to do. So I just incorporate those things, and then those things actually lead up to bigger things later on. But as a young age, as my son is, he don't even know what the workout means. He knows wrestling, he knows this, but he don't know that he's actually exerting himself to the point where, oh man, this hurts.
Hmm. He's coming up on it though. Being 12 years old, he's going
Yes.
to start looking at his biceps and be like,
Yep.
how can I get
Yep.
these bigger?
That's right. That's what he'll
That's
do.
awesome. You said he wrestles?
he wrestles it on and off. I don't push him to wrestle. If he wants to wrestle, then we'll go do it. But he's been off the mat for probably a year now, and he doesn't seem like he has an interest to do it. So I'm like, I'm not gonna sit there and push you. I
Hmm.
want you to want to do it, and then if you want to do it, I'm all in.
Right. Yeah. And that's something that I've noticed too with kids is, I sit down at the beginning of the year and I talk to my kids. I'm like, hey, what sport do you want to play in the spring? What do you want to play in the fall? And what are we doing over the summer? It's generally like swim lessons or something like that. But just, incorporate. So there's a difference between like forcing your kids and then forcing them when they're down. So like, in your son's example, I'm sure there were times where he didn't want to go to practice, but he had said he was going to do wrestling that
Right.
year or that season. And you're like, sorry, dude, like
Yep.
you're going, right. You
Yep.
made that commitment. And that's where I think there's a lot of misunderstanding when it comes, at least from what I've seen with parents, is, I almost signed a contract with my kids where I'm like, okay, I'm doing this. Here's my part. I'm paying the money. I'm coaching. I'm doing this. You're going to show up. That's the only part you've got. I'm buying you the gear. I'm doing everything that you need. If this is what you want, then you're showing up every practice and every game, unless
Yep.
there's some crazy emergency or we're out of town. And there's times where, there's 7, 8 year olds, they don't want to go, they want to sit
Right.
down and hang out. They had a hard day at school, whatever a hard day for an 8 year old is,
Yeah.
and, and
You're exactly right.
yeah, but pushing them in those moments is different than saying, well, like what you were saying, where it would be easy for you to say, well, I wrestled, I passed down those genetics. You're going to be a good wrestler. You need to
Right.
wrestle. There's that difference there, and I love it that you're not pushing, except in the most important moments, right? And what you were saying about going shed hunting, which I haven't gotten into. I just don't have the time for it, to be honest with you. But I'd love to if I knew more about it, and I had some buddies that knew about it. But getting them out there and something that he enjoys doing, but there's not many 12-year-olds that would go out and do a 10-mile hike.
No.
There's not,
No.
and
No.
so when you're saying that they're just lean because of genetics, I would kind of disagree with you a little bit, because you're pushing their limits as 12-year-olds. Most 12-year-olds are sitting there playing Xbox or doing whatever, building habits that are going to last them the rest of their lives. And you're helping your kids build these habits of, this challenge was fun, right? I beat my dad today, which probably never happens, but like I
Yep.
almost did, or I was wrestling with my dad today or whatever. I broke a sweat. He's not going to realize that until later in life. And so I think that's awesome. And those are good little key tips for parents out there.
For sure.
Don't force them unless
I
they've,
never lived my dreams through them.
there you go. There you go. Yep. And coaching, which I'm sure you, maybe not at world class level, but I don't know if you've ever coached kids and you hear the parents that are like, do this or do it, like from the sidelines. And I just, in my head, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to correct them now.
Right.
But I walk over to the kid and just let them know, hey, this is what you're doing, and you need to, you're doing awesome. So yeah, don't live your dreams out through your kids. I love that. It's a good statement there.
That's right.
So getting the kids involved in hunting, same thing. Seems like they're showing their own interest. Again, I can't imagine a 12-year-old walking around with a bugle tube as much as your son does, without
Now
having some
that
kind of interest.
he loves that, and when it's time to compete, he's a gamer, and he's been in this journey of competing since I started. So, and then when he seen, that I went to world championships and won worlds, then he was like, "That's what I want to do," and then he started taking off with it, and he's really good for his age. I mean, I wish I was doing that at that age. I'd probably be, 10-time world champion by now, but
Hmm.
he has jumped up, and that is, he loves to do that. We're going to see this here in a couple weekends. Hopefully we get it on video, but he's out there hunting for his, first elk, so he's going to take his bugle too for sure.
That's awesome. Is he doing rifle or muzzleloader?
First season rifle.
Awesome. Awesome.
Hopefully they still talking. I know in my experience this year is that the rut always starts beginning of September and it goes until the last cow is bred, basically. Which in my experience has always been, you have some cows come in heat early in September, but this year was a little different. We had like one or two cows that might have came in heat, but most of them came in heat probably probably the 17th and down. So most of the cows came in heat later, and that's going to push over into October quite a bit. Just hopefully we have some bugling bulls out there that still want to play the game, and I think we will.
Is he going to let you call him in, or is he going to be like, "Shut up, Dad, I'm doing it"?
Well, I, I seriously want to see what he's got in the woods, and I'm gonna do some on the spot correction, and then of course his voice ain't as loud as mine, so I can reach out to a little bit more distance than he can.
Mhm.
But it's a rifle tag too, so we don't have to get terribly close, but it'd be cool to call him into his lap
Yeah, no, that'd be
or
awesome.
let him call him into his lap. So
Yeah, that's really cool. That's really awesome. So, and you said that he won championships as well?
no, he placed fourth last year. He got
Hmm.
eliminated 2 years prior to that. He got beat by a former world champion twice.
Well, that's not a
Um,
bad spot to be in.
no, and then this year he came through the bracket and really, I wouldn't say surprised people because he was already good, but he got fourth, and the kids that beat him were the age 16 and 17. So
Hmm.
these are their last years at that age bracket because the age bracket is 11 through 17, which we
Okay.
know that's a big gap
Yeah.
between someone that's 11 and then somebody that's 16 years old whose voice is almost dropping to be a man. So
Hmm.
their voice is a heck of a whole lot deeper than his, but his call and ability is through the roof.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. That, and again, that's so cool that you're incorporating that with your family and just again, not forcing but encouraging and that he's willing to take that and take it to another level and willing to just compete. He doesn't even just want to go out and just do it in the woods, but actually take it up on stage. That's really cool. So let's talk a little bit about that now that we've kind of transitioned over to elk, and we're gonna
Okay.
get here eventually. I love your stories. I heard it on the Hunting Stories podcast. Sounds like you have even more to tell, and hopefully, that comes out. Eventually, you guys record another one. But as far as elk hunting is concerned, how did you get from North Carolina tied up into elk? This very different whitetail hunting, maybe black bear hunting, to elk hunting. What was it that got you hooked, I guess, on elk hunting?
Well, in 2005, I missed the draw here because I got here in June. So I missed the draw here in 2005. But if we had a couple people on the team that hunted elk, and they were like, "Yeah, you got to get in elk hunting, this, that, and this." And I said, "Okay." Well, in 2006, I drew my first elk tag, and I bought every video back in the day when it was all DVDs. I watched Sportsman Channel and I bought every DVD I could about elk hunting. And I basically said, all right, I need these diaphragms. I need to be able to use these. And I drove my wife insane trying to be able to hone. I knew I was going to be in shape. The mountains weren't going to eat me up like that. I just need to know, how do I find these elk? And the best way to find them is locate them with these calls. So I would practice and practice and practice and practice until I felt like a cow sound sounded very similar to what I'm hearing on these videos. And then I went to, the first bugle tube was a Primos Terminator, and it was easy to use. I didn't know how to use a diaphragm to bugle yet. I only knew how to cow sound with those. And I had open reeds, diaphragms, and a Primos Terminator bugle. And once
That's
I
one of those
honed
like
those,
extendable like pipe, right?
no, it was already a pipe, but it had the blue reed that goes on the top,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and it was fairly easy for me to make a good sound with it. So I I went out that first year and I located these elk, and I went back to this spot every day. I didn't know anything any better, and I went back to this spot until I killed one. And it was about the fifth try going into this spot, and then I ended up calling one in. My buddy was below me, and he had a hoochie mama, and I said, when I get him fired up, I'm gonna stop calling. I'm gonna let this bull come right past me and come to you. Sure enough, it just happened. Boom! I smoked this bull at 39 yards using diaphragms, the terminated bugle to find him and then bring him in. And then after that, I kind of felt like I needed to step my game up every year because that I felt like that was just luck more so than the skill part. And then I just kept practicing. I self-taught myself how to call these elk, and I was watching videos and just trying to mimic these elk and what these elk were saying. And I tried to pay attention to what they were saying when they were doing it, as they were saying it. And then every year got a little bit better and a little bit better. And I think I broke through and was able to use a diaphragm to bugle in elk and make some really good chuckles and grunts in 2009. In 2009, that's when I was like, okay, don't need the bugle, the Terminator bugle no more. I'm bugling with open reeds. I mean, with reeds, and I was doing really good. What I was doing is, as I was practicing up to elk season, I was filming myself and I was listening to it. I was like, oh, gotta fix that. Oh, gotta fix this. And then lo and behold, it just got better and better and better every year. So I that's how I really fell in love with it. When I would get them to scream, it was like dragons out there. I was like, holy
Mm-hmm.
smokes. And then you see this guy right in front of you, maybe 30 yards screaming. You're like, dude, I'm stuck. I love
Mm-hmm.
this stuff. So every year I started getting better and better and better. And then, I was killing elk consistently, through the, practicing on the off season and then working myself to this stage where I am now. And then 2019, I had a buddy of mine encourage me, man, you sound so good. We don't know if you're the elk or he's the elk. And he said, you should go compete. And I was like, I don't do that stuff, man. Um, and then he talked me into it, and I went to this little local competition here in Colorado Springs, and I pretty much smashed that tournament. I mean that competition. They were like, the judges came out and they was like, "You've never competed before?" I was like, "No, never competed before." So they encouraged me to go to another competition, which was in Salt Lake City, and I had time to fly in and check this competition out. And man, it was like 32 man bracket, and they ate me up. It was some
Mm.
great callers there. And I said, okay. I said, I ended up finishing like 14th out of 32 man bracket. I was like, that ain't bad, but I don't accept losing to Wales. So I had 1 month to practice
Mm-hmm.
before World Championships. And I knew I was gonna go to Worlds and at least try it. And I practiced all these calls and got ready for it. And then sure enough, I went to World Championships, and my goal was just to take out 2 people in the bracket, and I'd be happy with just 2 people in the bracket. Well, next thing you know, I was in the semis, getting ready for the next day because you got to make it to the semis to make it to the next day. So that pretty much determines the top 4 right there. And then I had in the semis, I had a really close bout with another guy. It was a 4-3, 7 judges on the panel, and I won 4-3, and I was like, wow, I just made the finals. And then end up going on and winning the men's division of in 2019. So after that,
Mm.
I kind of stepped up my game and went professional on the professional side. And I've been plagued with not having enough time, not making enough time to practice going into the professional division. But I've been fortunate enough to place top 6 on the 32 man bracket on the professional side 2 years in a row. But next year they're going to see a different me because I'm gonna dedicate some time to spend leading up to that competition because there's some things that I haven't been doing that I need to do. So I
Mm-hmm.
think they'll see a different me, and it'll be a good competition next year.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love hearing that. And you can tell the passion you've got for it, man. You're a competitor,
Oh yeah,
and you take things to the next level, obviously with, again, going back to the wrestling, and just how what I've seen as you as a parent, and of course, here with the elk calling, that's amazing. And then, you work with
yep,
Phelps Game Calls. So that's another great company, and some awesome calls over there.
yep.
Yeah, going back to what got you hooked, I was a little bummed this year. Um, I was in an area where I guess Eastman's wrote an article about this area, and I didn't know about it until I ran into people from 4 different states that came to Utah to hunt. And I was like, what are you doing? Like, you crossed Colorado, which has some
Hmm.
great opportunities, to come to Utah? Like, what? And
Hmm.
anyway, they, Illinois, Kansas, Missouri, and I want to say it was Wisconsin or something like that. Ridiculous. I'm sure there was other states out there too, but anyway, they were quiet, man. They and I'm not the best caller, but like they would scream their heads off all night. I'd wake up to bugles all night, and then they would just shut up as soon as the light turned on.
What time of the month was that?
This was, so our hunt ended the 21st of September, so I was there from the 13th through the 21st.
Wow, and they were shutting up. That was like the very beginning of where that moon was going down, and you should have seen
Mhm.
some darker days going into that.
They were
Um,
screaming their heads off all night, man. And right before light, I mean, they were screaming, and then they would just silent. And so there was a there was a guy that killed a little raghorn 24 hours after I watched so I dropped a pin where he killed it, and I went back to my Onyx, and I was sitting in that spot less than 100 yards away from that spot 24 hours earlier. And the guy had he said that this elk walked in. He didn't even know it was there. He said they'd been calling, nothing was calling back to him. So they were sitting there eating like an early lunch, late breakfast, whatever, just eating their snacks. And he heard a stick break, and there's squirrels and stuff. He was like, whatever. He looked up, and this elk was 50 yards from him. He was like,
hmm.
okay. And he was like, if I was blind, I wouldn't have even known it was there. Like,
Yep.
no heavy breathing, no heavy footsteps, nothing. Walked into him about 25 yards. He pinwheeled it and had it down. But I was like, man, that sounds like whitetail hunting to me. I don't want to just pick a spot and wait. That's not.
Right. Well, from my experience, especially this year, we would have elk, and they'd be talking, and early morning, and they you'd hear roundup bugles, and as they're going up to their bedding spots,
Mm-hmm.
they were quiet.
Mm-hmm.
So you would hear them at nighttime, you hear them first thing in the morning. At the latest, you would hear them probably 7 o'clock, and then boom, they were gone. So what I was doing to combat that was, I knew there were elk in the area.
Mm-hmm.
I would look at where they might be going, and I'd get to those spots before they were there. And I was there at those spots, and I was forcing them to talk because they had to. They knew I
Mm-hmm.
was there already.
Yep.
Wind in my favor, forcing them to talk with cow sounds, especially making that bull scream. Because if I'm close to that bull, and I'm sounding like I'm wanting heat or ready to, you know, to be bred, then it forced him to give his location up.
Mm-hmm.
So I was using that a lot. But also I had a lot of encounters where the bulls were in the area, and they would come in silent. They would come in silent. And I don't like hunting like that, but
Mm-mm.
sometimes we had to do a lot of dry setups to provoke a bull to come in. And we called in tons of them like that this
Yeah,
year.
that's awesome, man.
Tons.
That's awesome. Yeah, I recognize that there was a lot of people in the area. Just in this one little spot, there was at least 11 to 12 people. And
And
so
that can
like
cause them.
the elk were there,
Mhm.
100%, but I was like, I'm not willing to fight, with these other people. And then the other thing too, man, how do these 700-pound to 1,000-pound, on the big end creatures walk through these woods silent?
They
How do they do
so
that?
so th- they are known to break and make a lot of noises, but I
Mm-hmm.
will tell you right now is when they'll break some noise, I mean some trees and stuff so far away from you as they're coming to you, but as they get closer to you, they sneak in so quietly. It's like they step between the branches, and you never know. That's how a couple of them got pegged by me, is they stepped on a twig and they broke a twig, and then
Mm.
I look in that direction, and next thing you know, they're there. But
But
as they
these big
get
old
closer.
racks on their heads, man. Like, how do they're like,
Exactly.
and I'm like trying to
Exactly.
force my way through this way, holding my bow, trying not to make a sound. And they're just like, yeah, whatever, man.
And they know how to walk. They know how to walk right through that stuff without making a peep, and it's amazing to me. It still surprises me, like, how come a big old animal like that can sneak up on you and you not even know it?
Mm-hmm. But you break a stick and the forest lights on fire. The squirrels go
That's,
at it. The birds go at it, and
that's right.
oh man, that blows me away every time. Well, that's cool, man. So you had success this year as far as tagging out. You got your tag filled. Do you have any other tags, or is that you had one? You were one and done this year.
Well, it started off with an antelope tag that I had in the same area, and
Mm,
I went up a week before season, and I was chasing some really big antelope. Wasn't successful, and then I knew when elk season started that I wasn't going to devote a lot of time to the antelope tag until my tag was filled. And schedule while my schedule was still open for antelope tag, I still was concentrating more of my efforts on elk hunting. So I would hunt the mornings, and then we found a antelope buck that was he was right in the area that I was using to, drive my truck back and forth to go to these different spots for elk season. So we come down the mountain on we try to come back to camp every day, but it doesn't always happen. Especially if we have bugling bulls, we don't. If we're 4 miles in, we're not leaving. But if they're not bugling, we'll come out of there and we'll go try a different area. So we came down one time in the mountain, this early in the season, and I seen this antelope. He had 3 does with him, and I was like, I'm gonna give him a try. And antelope hunting is tough with archery equipment. So I failed the first time trying to get on him. Then we elk hunt, and that'll go on. The third attempt on this antelope, he messed up and he bedded in the wrong area, and I
mm,
snuck up on him. It was a 45-yard shot that I made, but I snuck up on him just because he was bedded in the wrong area.
there
And
you go.
I made a beautiful shot. So that's how it started off. So in between the hunts, I was boom, I filled that tag. And then throughout the season, I could have shot, I could have been done September 5th.
Mm,
Could have been done and tagged out. But I was shooting for a little bit more of an age class. Later in, more in my career, I'm trying to look for this, a bigger 5 or a nice 6. And
mm-hmm,
but our goal was to get all this on video. So in order to do that, you gotta pass up some of your smaller, bulls that are under the age class. And that's what I was doing. I was passing up a
mm,
lot of bulls. It was one bull that I probably regret now that I probably should have got him. He was a big 5, and I probably should have shot him. And you guys, when the video drops, you guys will see that I passed up on it, and we got into some bugling that day. It was heavy everywhere, and that was early in the season. I think we had a hot cow that was in the area, and it just drove all the bulls in that area nuts. Um, and there was a bunch of bulls that day. I think I passed up 7 bulls. I could have shot 3 spikes because that unit is not point restriction, and I could
mm-hmm.
have shot 2 other bulls that just didn't meet my standard at that point.
Look,
Um,
I'm gonna drop you my GPS next time. You write it on a note and hand it to him as you pass him up, and be like, hey, there's a ginger that way that wants to see you. Go check him.
yeah, yeah. Hey, well, funny story is opening day, opening morning, we went in on an area, and I was the first one in that area. And
Mm-hmm,
on our way out, so I passed up on 2 bulls opening day, and lo and behold, I found out that someone that I knew was in there, and he had killed the bull that I passed up on. He sent me a picture later, and it was the exact same bull that I
mm.
passed up on. He told me the story later. He said, I heard you calling, and that bull came from the area you was calling from. And I was laughing about it. And I seen the picture. I was like, yep, I passed up on that bull.
You're like,
Um,
I sent him your way.
yep, yep. So that was funny. But on our way out of there, I was like, holy smokes, there's a lot of people in here. Well, I didn't know that they were all going to come in after I had been there. So we moved areas and left that area alone for a little while, and then we came back in to visit it a few other times, and it was some elk in that area for sure, but not some of the ones that I wanted to chase yet. And then later on in the season, there was some giants that moved into that area that we stayed on and got on.
That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. I think next year I'm going to go to one of our limited entry units and go for a spike, because you can go into our limited entry units and get that experience, right? Where you can get in close on these bulls and everything, but you're limited to hitting a spike. unless obviously you've been drawn for the tag, but that takes, some of these units would take, 10, 15 years to draw. But, I had a buddy send me a video from one of these units. And I mean, bulls were just raking. They were being nasty towards each other just in the middle of the day. And I was like,
Yeah.
see, that's what got me hooked on elk, not if I want to hunt whitetails, I'll just go back to North Carolina. And, I know some people with land, and I've got a license there that I can just pull tags and I'll go sit in a tree. I don't want to do that. That's not what I'm looking for with elk,
Right.
So that's awesome, man. That's cool. I'm excited for that video to drop. Do you know when that's coming out, more or less?
Um,
Whenever it gets
honestly,
done.
it's well, we got a production part of it,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll have to see what it pans out to be. The footage is great. I could say that, but I'm thinking next year sometime, because people start getting revved up, and then they'll, I'm
Mm-hmm.
looking for people to check it out and check out what we've done.
Yeah.
And the footage was great. I might drop some hints along the way, like here's a piece of the hunt, here's a piece of the hunt, but
Mm-hmm.
not the whole thing. And I really don't know exactly when it's going to drop. And then we're going to drop after like we show the hunt and we put it all together for a good short film. Then we'll drop a 10-day series of each day leading into this. So,
That's awesome.
but it's going to be good. Um, we ended up at the very end of the season, kind of wrap it up for you. We we got into an area, and I discussed with a buddy of mine. I say, the last two days that were kills that y'all probably see on social media, those weren't the last days of season by no means, but these were the last 2 days that we spent up there. So we got into an area, and I finally let my buddy call in one for me, and I we had missed the herd. I knew where they were going, and we was going to cut them off and then call them in, and I missed them by minutes, and they had been in front of me already. Well, lo and behold, we called us. I had my buddy call for me, and we called a satellite off that herd, and that ends up being the one that I shot. Um, Ended up being a 19-yard shot. He only ran 80.
Wow.
Power drive him straight through both shoulders.
That's awesome.
It lodged into the far shoulder. It busted through the first shoulder, and he powered up. Ended up being a heart shot, and he only went about 80 yards. And
Dude, that's
then
awesome.
we got it all out. It was three of us. We got it all out at one go, which is a lot of weight on us. And then the next day, we took that evening off. Next day, we went in there, and I called in a 337 for my buddy. He shot that one.
Wow. That's a big bull.
Yeah, so we ended up scoring that bull, and he scored 337 at the he was a 7x6. The only thing he was missing was the mass. If he had the
Mm.
mass that carried it all the way up, he would have scored probably close to 360, but he was just missing that mass and that front tine length. So those brow tines wasn't as strong as some of your 360 bulls, but it was a great first archery bull for him for sure.
No, for sure, man. That's awesome. That's really cool. Well, sweet dude. Well, thank you so much for sharing a little bit about your season and kind of your history leading up to being the professional caller that you are, how passionate you are about elk hunting. I love it. You can tell that you're one of those people that just loves to compete and you like to push yourself. You don't need someone else to push you. If you didn't have anyone else around you, you'd still go out there, you'd still elk hunt. If you didn't have cameras, if you didn't have any of that stuff, you'd still be out there getting after it because it's just something that you love. That's really cool. If you want, I guess in parting, what is something that maybe you want to share with the listeners, that, whether it be about hunting, fitness, family, something that you want to leave with the people listening?
Well, first of all, personally, like if you want, just taking it all in perspective of, I try to chop everything in life as small as possible so I can digest it, right? So if you take in like, oh, I need to do this, I need to do that, that's too much. So take pieces of it. So if you want to be a successful elk hunter, take pieces of your past elk hunt and put them together to make one big journey, right? In order for you to be able to be good at calling, then you have to practice a little bit at a time every day. So I take I take life the same way. in order for me to be successful, I have to take these one little steps at a time to achieve my goals. I'm always teaching my kids what I've learned through failure, and don't take failure as, man, I'm not good. With failure comes success. I've failed more than I've been successful. So with that being said, I promise you, yeah, it sounds like, yeah, he's the toughest one out in the mountains. I've failed more than I've succeeded. But I know throughout those failures are going to come success. So even this year, it's been a couple times where I was like, wow, I just totally messed that up. And then, but I built off that stuff. And then always teaching my kids the same things that I've learned, in my wife. So treasure all those little things, because at the very end, how, we don't know how long we're going to be able to chase these elk in the woods. And if tomorrow was my last day, then I had a heck of a season.
That's amazing. I love it, man. That's exactly what I think a lot of the listeners, they're probably sick and tired of me saying just one day at a time, one step at a time, just like what you were saying, chop it up into little bits and pieces that you can digest, instead of trying to just become the master elk caller or whatever it is, become the most fittest individual tomorrow, doing
Right.
little bits at a time. Right. And that's
That's right.
amazing. Thank you so much for that. Well, I appreciate it, man. Where can people find you if they want to look at your bulls that you've knocked down, or your journey?
Yep, you can follow me on Instagram at Jermaine Hodge _ Colorado, or you can just type in Jermaine Hodge, and if you got a big old elk picture on there, then that's me. Or if you got a hunting picture on there, that's me. And then you can also find me at Koha, Colorado High Altitude Hunters. That's a little bit of a side hustle that is at the very beginning. And all we're doing is educating people on elk hunting, and you'll see some posts on there. It's not as big as my personal pages, but you can find me on all the social media platforms. And then also there's an article that's in my Instagram. It's in my bio. Just click on that article and it takes you to the Colorado Bow Association, and I talk about elk calling techniques and tips, and you can see that too as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'll leave those links down below, guys. Go check out Jermaine and his journey, and this new adventure that he's got going on with Koha. I'm definitely going to go check that out myself as well. So let's get better, guys. And of course, this is how I always end it. I always say, get out, live your life, and love it.